But so are we. The generals nodded. They trusted him, but they also knew the truth: this war would not be easy. Tipu quickly began to organize his defense. He divided his forces carefully. Some units were sent to protect key locations. Others were prepared for direct battle. He made sure that communication remained strong between all parts of his army, because in a war like this, confusion could lead to defeat. The first clashes began quickly. Enemy forces advanced from multiple directions. Their strategy was clear: surround Mysore, cut off its strength, break its defense. In one region, a large enemy force moved toward a critical position. If they captured it, they would gain a major advantage. Tipu acted immediately. He led his troops toward the area. The battlefield was wide, open, dangerous. The enemy had numbers, but Tipu had something else: control. He studied their formation, watched their movement, then gave his orders. Do not rush, he said. Wait. His soldiers held their positions. The enemy moved closer. Closer. Then now, the attack began. Fast, precise, unexpected. Tipu's forces struck at the weakest point in the enemy line. The attack created confusion. The enemy struggled to respond. For a moment, victory seemed possible. But this time, the enemy adapted quickly. They reorganized. They pushed back. The battle became intense. Both sides fought with everything they had. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. The sound of war did not stop. In the end, the position was held, but at a cost. Losses were heavy, and the message was clear: this war would not be easy to win. As the days passed, more battles followed. Some were successful, some were not, but each one added pressure. Each one tested the strength of Mysore. At the same time, the alliance against Tipu continued to grow stronger. The British East India Company brought more resources, more soldiers, more weapons. They were determined to finish the war. Inside Mysore, supplies began to decrease. Food became limited. Movement became harder. The pressure increased. In one difficult moment, a group of commanders approached Tipu with concern. Our resources are falling, one said. The enemy is closing in, another added. There was a pause. Then one of them asked carefully, should we consider negotiation? The room became silent. All eyes turned to Tipu Sultan. He stood still, thinking. Then he spoke. If we negotiate from weakness, he said slowly, we lose everything. His voice was firm. This is not just about land. He looked at them. This is about freedom. The word stayed in the air. Freedom. It was more than a goal. It was a belief, a reason to continue. Even when the situation became harder, even when the outcome was uncertain. As the war continued, Tipu Sultan pushed his army forward with determination. He moved between positions. He encouraged his soldiers. He adjusted strategies. He did not hide behind walls. He stood with his men. But deep inside he understood the truth. The enemy was getting closer. The pressure was increasing, and the final stage of the war was approaching. The capital, Srirangapatna, was becoming the center of everything. If it fell, everything would fall, and the enemy knew it. Their forces began to move closer toward the capital, slowly, carefully, preparing for the final attack. Inside the city, the atmosphere changed. People became aware of the danger. The streets were quieter. The tension was visible. But even in this moment, Tipu Sultan did not show fear. He stood strong, because a leader must remain strong even when everything feels uncertain. One evening, as the sun set behind the walls of Srirangapatna, Tipu stood looking out at the distance. He could almost feel the presence of the enemy, close, waiting, preparing. He took a deep breath. The end is near, he said quietly. But then he added something else, or a new beginning, because for Tipu Sultan this was not just the end of a war. It was the moment that would define everything. His leadership, his courage, his legacy. The final battle was coming, and the tiger of Mysore was ready. The Tiger of Mysore, the story of Tipu Sultan, Part 9. The fall of Srirangapatna. The sky was dark. Heavy clouds covered the horizon. The air felt still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. This was not just another day. This was the day everything would change. The capital city, Srirangapatna, stood surrounded. Enemy forces had closed in from all sides. The combined armies of the British East India Company and its allies were now at the gates. Cannons were positioned. Soldiers were ready. The final battle had begun. Inside the city, tension filled every corner. The streets were quiet. Homes were closed. People stayed together, waiting, hoping, but they knew the danger was real and very close. Inside the fort, Tipu Sultan prepared for what would come next. There was no fear in his face, only focus, only determination. His armor was ready, his sword by his side. He walked through the fort, passing soldiers who stood in silence. Some looked at him with respect, others with hope, all of them with trust. Tipu stopped near a group of young soldiers. They looked nervous, uncertain. He looked at them and spoke calmly. "Today is not just about fighting," he said. "It is about standing for what is right." His voice was steady. "You may feel fear. That is natural." He paused. "But do not let fear decide your actions." The soldiers listened closely. "Stand together," he continued. "Protect each other." Then he added softly, "And remember why you are here." Those words gave strength, because sometimes, in the middle of fear, clarity is what people need most. Outside the walls, the enemy began their attack. Cannons fired. Boom! The sound echoed through the land. Walls shook. Dust filled the air. The battle had started. The defenders of Srirangapatna responded quickly. Cannons fired back. Arrows flew. Gunfire spread across the battlefield. The noise was overwhelming. The chaos intense, but within the chaos there was order. Because Tipu Sultan had prepared for this, he moved quickly between positions, giving orders, adjusting defenses, supporting his soldiers. He did not stay in one place. He was everywhere. Present, active, leading. The enemy pushed forward. Wave after wave of soldiers advanced toward the walls. Some were stopped. Some broke through smaller defenses. The pressure increased. Inside the fort, the situation became more difficult. Supplies were limited. Positions were under constant attack. But still they held. Hour after hour, the battle continued. The sun rose higher. The heat increased. The intensity did not stop. Then a critical moment came. A section of the wall was heavily damaged. The enemy saw the weakness, and they moved fast. A large force advanced toward that point. If they broke through, the city would fall. Tipu Sultan understood the danger immediately. Without hesitation, he moved toward that area. His guards followed. The fighting there was fierce, close, dangerous. Swords clashed. Gunfire echoed. There was no distance now, only survival. Tipu fought with strength and precision. He defended the position. He encouraged his men. "Hold the line," he shouted. For a moment it worked. The line held. But the enemy kept coming. More soldiers. More pressure. The defense began to weaken. Step by step they were pushed back. Inside the fort, the situation was becoming critical. The enemy had entered. Fighting spread into the inner areas. This was the final stage. There was no turning back. One of Tipu's commanders approached him urgently. "We must retreat to safety," he said. We can regroup, fight again later. Tipu looked at him. There was no anger, only clarity. If I retreat now, he said, what message does that send? The commander remained silent. Tipu continued, a leader does not leave his people in their final moment. His decision was made. He would stay. He would fight. Until the end. The battle grew even more intense. The sounds of war filled every corner. Smoke covered the air. Visibility dropped. Confusion spread, but still Tipu Sultan fought. Near one of the gates, surrounded by enemies, he continued to defend. His movements were strong, focused, unstoppable. But the numbers were too great, the pressure too heavy, and in that moment history was written. Tipu Sultan fell on the battlefield, not in retreat, not in surrender, but in resistance. In courage. In honor. The fighting slowly came to an end. The city fell silent. The storm had passed, but the cost was great. The fall of Srirangapatna marked the end of a powerful resistance. But it did not end the story, because what Tipu Sultan stood for could not be defeated. His courage, his leadership, his belief in freedom remained. As news spread across the land, people remembered not just a ruler but a symbol. A man who chose to stand even when the outcome was uncertain. Even when the cost was everything. Because some stories are not about victory, they are about meaning, and in that meaning they live forever.